In the heart of Bavaria, nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering trees, stood a quaint farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. Here, amidst the picturesque landscape, a brutal tale unfolded, a tale of deceit, desperation, and ultimately death. This wasn't your typical countryside idyll. No, this was a stage for one of Germany's most perplexing and gruesome mysteries. A mystery that continues to baffle investigators even a century later. March of 1922 dawned as a crisp spring day in Bavaria. The Gruber family, Andreas and his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria and her 2 children, along with their maid, were preparing for another day on their remote farm. Life was simple, if somewhat solitary. The nearest neighbor was a good distance away and the family was largely self-sufficient, finding solace in the rhythm of the seasons and the quiet hum of their daily chores. However, this idyllic existence was about to be shattered. For in the days leading up to March, a series of unsettling incidents began to mar the tranquility of their lives. Andreas, a man attuned to the nuances of his land, noticed peculiar tracks in the snow. Footprints that seemed to appear out of thin air. They led from the dense forest bordering their property straight to their house, but they offered no return path. As he stood there contemplating these enigmatic tracks, a sense of foreboding settled upon him. It was as though someone or something was stalking them, lurking just beyond their sight. Then there were the sounds, strange noises that echoed through the house, particularly at night. Footsteps in the attic, whispers in the walls. These were not the ramblings of an overactive imagination, but real disturbances that shook the very foundations of their home. Each creak of the aging house, each rustle outside became a source of heightened awareness and growing unease. Even the maid, a practical woman not easily swayed by superstition, began to express her fears. She spoke of an oppressive presence, a feeling that the house was not theirs alone, that some unseen entity had made itself at home. Fearful eyes watched their every move, and their sanctuary had become a prison of fear. Their world, once so serene, was now fraught with apprehension. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every sound a potential danger. On March, just as twilight began to paint the sky in hues of purple and gray, the neighbors noticed an eerie silence had fallen over the Gruber homestead. The evening was drawing on and yet there was no sign of life. No flickering lights illuminated the windows, no sounds of voices or laughter carried on the breeze. It was as if the family had vanished into thin air. Concerned, they decided to investigate. When they reached the Gruber house, what they found sent shockwaves through their small community. The gates were locked, the windows shuttered. It was as though the residents were trying to hide from something or someone. Days turned into a week, and still there was no word from the Grubb family. The livestock went unfed, crops lay untilled. The rhythmic routines of farm life were replaced by an unnerving stillness. The neighbors, growing increasingly alarmed, finally forced their way into the property, their worst fears confirmed. In the barn, they discovered the lifeless forms of Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, and little Cecilia lying side by side. The sight that greeted them was both gruesome and heartbreaking. The family had been slain, each struck down with a heavy blunt object, their faces contorted in silent screams. But the horror did not end there. Upon searching the rest of the property, they found Victoria's infant son lifeless in his crib and their maid lifeless in her room. All 6 members of the family had been brutally murdered, leaving behind a haunting tableau of violence and despair. As news of the tragedy spread, a pall of sorrow and disbelief settled over the community. The quiet, God-fearing family had been wiped out, their future extinguished in an instant. But amidst the grief, questions began to arise. Who could have committed such a heinous act? What had compelled the killer to invade their home and snuff out their lives so mercilessly? As the investigation commenced, a multitude of theories emerged, each more perplexing than the last. Rumors swirled through the town like a winter wind, chilling everyone to the bone. Some whispered of a deranged farmhand, driven by envy or madness, while others spoke of a robbery gone awry. But as the days passed without a definitive answer, fear took root in the community. Could there be a serial killer in their midst? Had they been living in the shadow of danger without realizing it? In the absence of concrete evidence, suspicion fell on various members of the community, tearing apart the fabric of their close-knit society. Friends and neighbors became wary, their bonds of trust frayed by the specter of violence. The weight of unanswered questions pressed heavily on the townspeople, each trying to piece together the fragments of a shattered life. Adding to the enigma, evidence surfaced indicating that the killer had remained on the farm for days after the murders. Livestock were fed, meals prepared, the fireplace used, suggesting that the killer had settled in as though the murders had not occurred. This revelation introduced a new layer of complexity to the case. Was it a personal vendetta or a crime of passion? Or was there a more sinister motive lurking beneath the surface? The possibility that someone could inhabit their space so casually after committing such atrocities was both unsettling and perplexing. It was as if the killer had transformed the scene of the crime into their own private domain. The neighbors, upon discovering the grim truth of the livestock being fed and the killer's possible presence, were horrified. The notion that they might be sharing their lives with a cold-blooded killer was a terrifying prospect. Fear and uncertainty took hold, casting long shadows over their everyday existence. As the investigation deepened, the authorities uncovered another crucial piece of evidence. The murder weapon, a mattock, was found concealed in the attic. This discovery not only provided a grim insight into the brutality of the crime, but also raised more questions. How did the killer manage to stash the weapon in plain sight? And why choose a place as unlikely as the attic? Each detail added to the mosaic of the crime, yet the image that emerged was fragmented and unclear. Among the myriad theories that arose, one stood out, a theory that pointed towards the most unthinkable of suspects, one of the family members. It was suggested that perhaps the murders were not the result of an outsider's intrusion, but a dark secret harbored within the family itself. If true, it meant that their tight-knit community had been harboring a monster in their midst. This notion shook the community to its core. The idea that such brutality could exist within the sanctity of a family, within the bonds of love and trust, was a disturbing thought. It challenged their perception of their world, their belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the theory remained just that, a theory. Without concrete evidence, the whispers faded into the background, leaving behind a haunting silence. And as the sun set over Hinterkaifeck, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and deep violet, the residents could not escape the chilling certainty that some secrets are best left buried. The quiet countryside now bore witness to a crime so heinous, so baffling, that it transcended generations. The Hinterkaifeck murders became a haunting chapter in their history, a grim reminder that sometimes the darkest secrets lie not in the shadows, but in the hearts of men. Over the years, countless theories have attempted to shed light on the Hinterkaifeck murders, each attempting to decipher the killer's motive. Jealous lovers, disgruntled acquaintances, even wandering gypsies have been put forward as possible suspects. Yet despite these theories, no one has ever been charged. The case remains open, a gaping wound in the annals of criminal investigations. Was it a crime of passion, a robbery gone wrong, or something more sinister, a glimpse into the abyss of human depravity? Perhaps the answer lies buried with the victims, taking their secrets to the grave. As we reflect on this chilling tale, we are reminded of the tenuous nature of our existence, the fragility of life, and the complexities of human behavior. The Hinterkaifeck murders continue to haunt us because they challenge our understanding of human nature, forcing us to confront the darkness that can lurk even in the most seemingly idyllic settings. If you've delved into the chilling chronicles of Hinterkaifeck, we invite you to share your thoughts. Did the jealous lover, the wandering tramp, or perhaps a malevolent spirit orchestrate this brutal symphony of death? Your insights may offer another perspective on this labyrinthine enigma. Also, if you find our narratives intriguing and would like to support our channel, your support would mean the world to us. Together, let's continue to explore the shadowy realms where reality intertwines with the macabre. Thank you for being a part of our journey into the heart of darkness.